Hi, it's Robin. I've got here a Commodore 64C and the 1541-2 disk drive, and here's the model 1541 test demo diskette, some form of this disk shipped with pretty much every 8-bit Commodore disk drive Commodore ever produced. So put it in and we'll do the famous incantation load $8, and we're getting a device not present error. Well, that's exactly right. What we've done is tried to load directory from device 8, and for purposes of this episode, I've actually changed this disk drive to device 9. So instead, let's load $9. And there we go. It's loaded the disk directory from device 9, and we can list it. And there's all the files that are on that disk. Now, typically from the factory, Commodore set the disk drive to device 8, and that was the normal default. But Commodore does support multiple disk drives, or even single disk drives with other numbers. For example, this 1541-2 has dip switches on the back that let you set the disk drive to any of 4 numbers from device 8 all the way up to 11. And the company CMD made disk drives where you could select 8 or maybe even 16 different device numbers. And really, the kernel operating system is fine with any of those, but device 8 is the standard. By the way, earlier 1541 disk drives did not have dip switches to select the device number, but if you opened up the disk drive, there was a trace you could cut to somewhat permanently set the disk drive to device 9. Some people would wire a toggle switch up to that. Now, on pretty much any Commodore disk drive, you can temporarily change the device number. On this test diskette, there is a file called disk address change. Whoops. Old habits. Comma 9. And let's run that. And it tells you to turn off all disk drives except the one you want to reprogram. We've only got the one right now. The old device address is 9, and we want to change it to 10, for example. Okay, now it's been done. And now we can load the disk directory with comma 10. If we power cycle the drive, that's no longer at 10. It's back at the switch default of 9. So I've got a couple aspects about this I want to explore today. The first one is just going to be trying to load up some software. Here's the print shop, and let's try loading print shop from device 9. Let's run that. Here we go. Please wait. Well, we'll be waiting a long time. Even though the initial boot program loads fine from device 9, this actual program is hard-coded to only do the full load from device 8. And I'm going to plug in my EX3 cartridge expansion port just because it has a handy reset switch on it. Just so I don't have to power cycle so many times today as we try booting these programs. So what happens if we load that boot program and list it? So it looks like it's actually a machine language loading program here in data statements that gets poked into memory and then called with a sys. And I'll take a guess that that 8 in the machine language is the hard-coded device number. So can we make this work just by changing that to 9? And then we'll run. Please wait. And sure enough, it actually is loading now. But unfortunately, it's not that simple. It loaded partway and then it failed. This is actually really common with Commodore 64 disk-based programs that they assume device 8, and it's a shame because it actually takes very little extra programming to support any valid disk drive number. And I'll be showing you that as we go on today. Okay, here's a word processor called Pocket Writer. I actually used this back in high school. I think I've explained before that putting a colon before the star ensures that the disk drive returns the first file on disk. Since we're going to be resetting the computer so much today, there's a chance that the 1541 will try to load the previous file, maybe even from a different disk. And the colon just helps ensure that we're getting the right one. So this Pocket Writer, let's list that. The boot is just a machine language program. I won't be doing a lot of machine language today. So let's try running that program. And let's try and boot the 40-column word processor. Again, just to see if this program allows booting from device 9. Much of today is going to be sort of exploratory. I know some people don't like that. They want everything very prescribed. You might want to skip ahead. Okay, so it seems to have booted here. And here we are in Pocket Writer. Hello world. But I did notice that there's one thing that doesn't work here. Need help? Press F7. And you can get built-in help up at the top of the screen there. But if you need more help, as it says in the light blue line, press F7. So now it asks us to put the program in drive. Put program in drive, program disk in drive, then F7. And you see how it's stuck. This help feature is hard-coded to device 8. So even though the program boots and mostly works fine from any device, for whatever reason, the programmers forgot to make the help system. We can press F8 to exit back out. So at least we haven't hung up or crashed. Next we have Mavis Beacon teaches typing. Let's list that one. Well, we can see right here that it's not going to work because it's got a device 8 hardcode into the boot program. Well, what if we modify that just by changing that to 9? Well, it just loaded ever so slightly further. So if you think about this, this is like if there was a Windows program that would only run from the C drive, for example, or maybe the A drive back in the floppy days, or I don't know if your CD-ROM is the D drive. Next, the newsroom. Oh, there we go. That's why I said I would do the colon star. So yeah, the disk drive remembers the last file loaded, which isn't even on this disk. Okay, here we go again, another basic boot file. And we know it's not going to work, right? Device not present in 2. So again, let's see if we can find one that we can fix just from basic. Well, that was only slightly better. Yeah, let's try some games like F-15 Strike Eagle by Microprose Software with some bad Acta plaque, where the glue starts to come through the label there. Okay, let's look at this one. Doesn't seem to be anything there. Okay, let's try loading boot, comma 9. Nothing there. So I think it's forcing us to add the comma 1 so it loads into memory and probably auto boots. Oh yeah, there we go. Oh, there you go. Device not present error in 30. Oh, sure enough. Let's change that to 9 and run. Oh, device not present error in 2. Well, now we got a whole bunch of files. So you can see how one file loads another file. And this one loads a whole bunch. Oh, neat. I was like the MicroProse programs because they were almost all written on actual Commodore 64s. And there's often interesting comments like we saw in the Pirates game. This one, look, the F-15 game apparently was written the 4th of September, 1984. That's probably when the final version was done. Okay, device 9. So I'm just going to go through and hit return on all those. Any other disk drive references here? Okay, I don't see any, so let's try running it. Now, I'm sure there were some Windows or at least DOS programs that would only run from certain drive letters, but I think basically consumers demanded that you'd be able to load your game or program from any of your drives, or for that matter, install it to other drives. But on the Commodore 64, of course, lots of people didn't even have a single disk drive, and having two was extremely rare. And if you only had one, why would you? Except for me just being curious here, why would you just renumber it to 9 if you only had one? But of course, those of us who kept using the Commodore 64 into the late 80s and early 90s, at least in my area here in Canada, there were lots of disk drives available. People were even just giving them to me, or I was buying them inexpensively. And soon enough, I had multiple disk drives, and there were times I wanted programs to run from different disks and they wouldn't. Yeah, don't misunderstand that. I'm trying to make this out to be like the hugest deal. This is partly just for our own learning and understanding. Oh, so look, it loaded so long. But still here, device not present error. So even after all that editing we did, this game still won't start. 8519 list. Well, can't even see line 8519. It's probably a compiled program. Close, but no cigar for F-15 Strike Eagle. Next, we have the Sub Battle Simulator by Epix, the preview disc. Okay, just machine language. We'll run it. By the way, I'll just cut out loading time whenever there's anything interesting to look at, or I don't have anything interesting to say. Oh, this is promising. Hey, there we go. Sub Battle Simulator. Game designed by Digital Illusions. Tank Battle Simulator. Next in the Masters Collection. Oh, have we finally got one that works? Is this like the 7th or 8th program? Okay. Entering patrol area. Oh, we missed. I don't really know what I'm doing here. Okay, well, we found one that works. The Great Nordic War. Sometimes you have to power cycle because the game installs a fast loader in the disk drive. and it no longer remembers how to speak regular Commodore protocols. Okay, well, this game looks like it'll work fine because it's only a single file on the disk, a pretty big one. So I haven't mentioned yet that really this problem only affects multi-load programs. If it's just a single file, then a kernel load can load it no problem from any valid disk device number. The problems occur when you load that initial boot program and then it in turn has code with hard-coded device numbers. And then even when we edit that, that may load other code that then has a hard code value in it. Oh yeah, hey look, it's even in BASIC. Oh, I forgot to change the color to white that time. Let's list the program. There, you guys can type that in at home. Play it back in slow motion, type it in. Free game. That's a long listing. It's amazing some of the games that were written in BASIC back then. Right on the C64. Okay, so it loads fine, but I can see here at line 29,000 that it does have hard-coded device 8, probably for loading or saving games. Probably doesn't prevent you from playing it, though. New game or an old? A new game. Recruiting? No. There's the status. Next up, here's Mastertronic Candidate. Never know what each one will do. Yeah, that was longer file. Oh, pretty long boot program here. Okay, so this is pretty common for these multi-load files. It's loading a number of files. Each time you load a file in Commodore BASIC, it actually restarts the program, but variables are intact. So X gets incremented here, and then this on go to, the first time in the program, it'll go to line 1, then the second time it restarts, goes to line 20 and loads vary. Then here, line 30, loads vary 2, and so on. So what we can do is if we move line 4 to line 5 here, and then add our own line 4, I was mentioning how it's easy to actually support different disk drives. So let's actually try this here. Just go D equals peak, location 186, and that holds the device number of the last disk access. And just for safety, we can go if D is less than 8, I guess if you had a cassette access, or when you first turn on the computer, 186 is set to 0. Emulators in particular will boot a file, but without accessing the disk, it'll just basically inject the file right into C64 emulated RAM without actually using the disk routines at all. And as a result, 186 will still be 0, even though a file is loaded. So if D is less than 8, then just set D to 8. Okay, so now we have our device number, and we can just go through here, and wherever there's an 8, instead of putting a 9 in, we can put the D. Let's just go through here and look. for any other accesses. Whole bunch of instructions here. And here, there's a hardcode 8 in a string. So here we'll just print the value of D. Actually, let's do this right. Mid-string, this is what we were talking about in a video a while ago. String, convert D into a string, and then take the mid-string, start at position 2. So that will just print without a space the drive number, such as 9. Okay, let's try running that. So far, so good. Do you require instructions? No. Well, it's looking pretty good. Check out these loading instructions that some kid, not me, wrote, previous owner. I got this used, I'm sure. To load the games above. 1. Print. Load, quote, the first 2 letters of the program, star, quote, comma 8, comma 1. That's kind of right, but you know, like how people would use the word print when they meant type. And did anybody literally type that in? And the loading finished. But I don't see no game. Oh, see how the bitmap's corrupting? Basics running behind that bitmap. Yeah. So Basics actually scrolling the color memory here. Okay, well, we tried. Yeah, another one does not work. All right, Galaxian. Oh, okay, VMAX. Whoops. Looking again. Okay, I guess it's trying to force me to load with comma 9, comma 1. Yeah. And actually, look, it looks like it might go. Ooh, that was quick. It's that VMAX copy protection, but it's also a very good fast loader. Start game. Galaxian. Oh. This is no Galaga or Galaga. But hey, it boots from device 9. Even though it has a pretty some heavy copy protection there. Nice. Okay, now I gotta try and finish this wave. Ooh, last guy speeds up. There we go. Alright. There, I think we have 2 that work now. Okay, how about BMX Racers? I think this is the disc I used way back in that Epic's Fast Load video. Oh yeah. Looks like another one. 0D equals peak 186. Let's try that. Oh. There's another one. set back to 8. That's because the one load statement that did execute that I didn't change to D had a hard code 8, therefore 186 is getting set. So let's poke 186, 9 and run. There we go. This probably takes a while, so I'll jump ahead. I think this disc used to be owned by a smoker. I can just smell the faintest smoky smell wafting from my 1541 too. Even though I've had this for years and years. Might be another one of the discs. I think I mentioned before that much of my collection is used. Although I kind of remember having an original BMX Racers when I was a kid. I might have bought it at Zeller's. Oh! Okay, so after all that, it failed. That is probably at the end of the load. It's trying to do a copy protection check, and it's failing, so it's printing that kind of like as a diagnostic code. Well, that didn't work. Next, we have Monty plays Scrabble. Oh, look at that, the hub ring. The hub ring's come off there. It's come, that's the glue's dried off. Well, those aren't really necessary. These mechanisms seem to work fine without. Generally, 1541s work fine without hub rings. They just make the hub of the disc, the middle of the disc, a little bit thicker, a little bit easier for the drive to grab, for the drive mechanism to grab. Okay, there we go. Monty. Okay, I guess we have to load it with the extra comma 1. Oh! Searching for Monty 1, searching for Monty 2. Alright. So obviously that multi-load is not supporting device 9. Here's Epic's Final Assault, copyright 1988. Machine language program will run it. Ooh, look at that. Final Assault version 1.6. Isn't that cool? Right through the borders. That's a huge scroller. Is that all like giant sprites? Epics. That's pretty cool. I don't think I've ever played this. Some of these games I just picked up and never tried. Wow. Nice art. Huge scroller over top of the art. I guess that's sprites again. Press the spacebar to continue. Those are really cool how the screen scrolls down. That's like, what is that? Flexible line positioning? That's like a demo effect. Number of courses, 1. Enter my name. Departure time. D for done, I guess. We'll leave in the summer. Really impressive presentation here. Number of courses to choose, 1. Okay, accept. Well, this one works pretty good from device 9. Accept. Some of those late Epix games are very impressive. At least from a presentation point of view. Alright. no idea what I'm doing there. Okay, next we have Ms. Pac-Man. Oh. So obviously not a basic boot program, so I'm going to load it as a machine language one with comma 9, comma 1. Oh yeah, VMAX. Thunder Mountain. There's Ms. Pac-Man. I made that video about Pac-Man with that broken title screen. This title screen looks much better. Funny how they hacked this one to say Thunder Mountain up at the top. This was originally by Atari. Oh, stick port 1. Yeah. Oh. I gotta finish the level, right? Oh, good. Okay, so Ms. Pac-Man also works. Oh! Cool! What a crash! So this has some reset protection built into it. Might even just be a side effect of it originally being a cartridge. Although I'm not sure about that. Okay, so I'm power cycling. Ooh! Even there. It didn't boot back up. I think this C64C has a little bit of higher persistence RAM. So it's going to power cycle longer. There we go. Now we're back. Some models of 64C, they take like 30 plus seconds. You got to have them powered off or the RAM doesn't reset. Okay, here's Wiz Ball. One of my favorite games. Oh, okay, here's one that just has the same peak 186. So this program appears to be doing it the right way. Not a hard-coded device 8. Will it work? Oh, and no. Despite the loader, see how it flashes on the screen there? Device not present or something. It's saying very quickly there. Yeah, so that was Wiz Ball by Ocean, but in North America released by Mindscape. Okay, next we have Top Gun. Oh, it freezes. Let's look at the directory here. Well, this is one of those weird programs where the first file on the disk is not the boot file. The boot is way down here. So let's try that. Loader. It's hard to believe some of these commercial games are so lazy. Okay, so, well, here, I'm just going to hard code that to 9. Run. Loading Top Gun. Well, nope. Next is Mail Order Monsters by Electronic Arts. Okay, loading EA, comma 8. Let's try 9. Oh! Disk error. Okay, well. Yet another failure. Next, Ultimate Wizard, also by Electronic Arts. Okay, let's list the oh, see that? It's one of these protected listings. Okay. I gotta break out my super snapshot for this one. Okay, so we load it into memory. That's still doing that protected stuff. So if I go into the monitor, if we look at memory from 0801, we'll see there is a basic program in there. Right here, it's trying to load EA from device 8. But it's doing some basic tricks to make it so we can't actually see the basic listing, even though it's there. Okay, so I changed that 1 byte from hex 38 to 39. And now it's going to load from device 9. Let's try that. Resume. And we'll just run it. Here it goes. Well, that was a lot of trouble for no result. Oh. Huh. Next we have a shiny one. That is hard to see. Skate Rock. Machine language, we'll just load it with comma 1. Share data, present Skate Rock, now loading. Ooh. There's support too. Well, that one works fine. I used to love this game. Got weird controls. Gotta get all these flags. Oh, brakes on. Okay, rotate left and right, and oh. You push up to kick forward, and sometimes, if you bump into anybody, you're doomed. Hey there. Managed to make it through level. I used to be able to finish this game. It's really tricky. You gotta learn each course. Okay, Gauntlet. Once again, machine language. Oh, another VMAX. Ooh, this time it's working. VMAX is pretty touchy, like sometimes you gotta power cycle the drive before it'll load anything. There we go. To port 1, 1 player. Choose Merlin the Wizard. Level 1. All right. Oops. I forgot that C64 version isn't all that impressive looking. But it plays pretty good. Does handle a lot of monsters. Ghosts. Okay. Gauntlet works. Funny that we're finding a lot more games that are working just all of a sudden. Basically, I just pulled these at random. Okay, here's my beat up. I don't know why the corner's so bent and gross. But here is Tetris. Oh, here's another big loader. Okay, let's try and give this one the treatment. D equals peak, 186. And it's not really necessary, but anyway, just good form. If D is less than 8, then D equals 8. Okay, so I just added that as line 5 at the beginning of the program. And you can see here, it's just going this on go to, and we're just going to replace each one of these. I'll press return at the end. Just list the program. So that's the line we added to set D, and just making sure. Okay, and all the loading now should be done. Run from the current device. There we go. There's the Tetris title screen. This was actually the first version of Tetris I ever played, and this was before Tetris came out in the arcade, and before it came out with the Game Boy. So that was this was probably like 1988. I was first playing Tetris, and it was 1989, 1990 when it came out for the Game Boy that became so super popular. You know, Tetris just blew up. It was everywhere. But for a little while, us computer nerds were playing Tetris before it went so mainstream. Now, this isn't a particularly great version of Tetris, but it is playable. What's notable, that art's pretty cool, and it has this epic soundtrack. It's just like this great moody tune that just lasts for, I don't know how long it really is, but it feels like it's a 15-minute song. I just remember getting so into playing Tetris, you know, just play it for hours and hours. But yeah, I think this version's just like compile basic. It's a little bit laggy. It doesn't feel great nowadays. The Game Boy version certainly tightened up the controls a lot. And I mean, I'm a fan of the Game Boy too. I bought one almost as soon as they were available here in Thunder Bay, I guess in early 1990. Original Game Boy. Bought it at Consumers, which was a strange discount store where they didn't really have things on shelves. You had to fill out these little papers and go to this window. It was kind of like, felt kind of third world in a way. And they would tell you if they had it there in the warehouse. And sometimes they say, no, we don't have that. And you know, wasted all that time filling out this form. Felt kind of like how the government would run a store if they were in charge. Okay, did it work? Oh, there we are. Well, I could try and play it with the keyboard, eh? Did you know that this is, I think, a joystick port 1 game? Oh, no, port 2. If you hold down spacebar and other keys, it's the same as pressing the joystick. Oop. Space M is the fire button, which rotates the piece. C is left. I keep holding down spacebar. Z drops. Okay, M to rotate. C to go left. And it doesn't have a speed up like... Okay, here, I'm going to go left. There we go. B. Okay, if I press Z to go down, it's going to drop right to the bottom. It doesn't do that speed up thing that all more modern Tetrises do. Okay, so I'm rotating. B, C. I don't know why I'm doing this. It's just... okay, there, and Z to drop it. So anyway, the CIA chip handles both the joystick lines and the keyboard lines. Kind of a weird thing, but the side effect is that you can trick some programs into using the keyboard, even though they're meant for joystick. So yeah, I think that I love that music. It just goes on and on. Okay, so we got Tetris working. That one needed modifications, but it does work with the boot. Okay, and the last one we're going to look at is the Movie Monster game. Okay, so this is another one of these ones that looks like it'll work right. So let's just try running it as is. Right on. Okay, port 2. I always thought this was so cool. So yeah, it seems to work fine from device 9. This is awesome, the curtain in the theater here. Enjoy gummy glogs and popcorn. Preview is being approved for game lovers of all ages. Great games from Epix. Summer Games 1 and 2. I thought this was so awesome. Like, it was so meta to see games within games. Millions of years he slumbered deep beneath the ocean. This is Godzilla. So all that was just kind of exploratory. Maybe you learned something. I don't know. It was kind of fun for me. But what I want to do is, again, I'm going to leave Movie Monster in there. And we're going to load up that file. Loading up Movie Monster again. And this is just what the last thing I want to discuss. We're going to look at this. This is brought to my attention by David, aka Living 8-Bit. And he asked me about this. Okay, you see how we peak 186, put in variable X, and then use it. Okay, well, that's fine for games that load a whole bunch of files, but why can't we just instead get rid of all that here and just go peak 186 right in line? Like, right? This should return 9, and this should work, shouldn't it? So let's even peak 186 just to be sure. Yeah, it says it's 9. Okay, let's run that program. How about that? It says press play on tape. what's the deal? Right? We just saw that 186 is 9. And now let's just go back up here, peak 186. And you see it's being changed to device 1, and that is the cassette deck. So what's the deal? So that's what David contacted me about, this weird thing. It's like we could think of it as a bug. Why does this happen? I'm going to put my super snapshot in. And we'll go into the monitor. We're going to do a little bit of machine language exploration now. According to mapping the Commodore 64, the basic load routine is at E168. Okay, we're trying to figure out what's the deal. Why can't we just put peak 186 as the parameter? This is the load routine. It just sets up here that we're actually going to do a load and not a verify. And it jumps to subroutine at E1D4. So we're just going to E1D4. And we're going to look at that. And it just does a bit of setup here. But here's the important thing. It loads the X register with the value of 1. And remember, the cassette deck is device 1. And then it calls this routine at FFBA. So let's look at that. FFBA, which is just actually just a call, which is part of the kernel jump table, which jumps to FE00. So we'll look at that. Okay, and here we go. The X register is loaded with 1 for the cassette drive, and X is stored in BA. And what is location BA? Well, it's that 186 decimal that we've been talking about all this time, the current device used for loading. So every time you call load, the kernel explicitly sets the default device back to 1, back to cassette. And that's because when you use a load command without a parameter, it loads from cassette. So just to look at this a bit more here, every time you call load, right here, location 186 is set back to 1 right here. Now what happens is this checks if there's more parameters after load, and if there is, yes, it gets the file name, which is, right after the load command. It's optional for cassette, but for disk it's required. And then it checks for more parameters, and here is where we get the device number. This is what reads the device parameter from the load command. This is where it would see our ,8, ,9, or whatever. Okay, so we don't have to look in great detail. I think it's enough to know that when load first starts, 186 is set to 1. Then if there is a parameter here, like if there is a device number found here, 8 or 9, then that'll be loaded into the X register. And then FFBA is called again, and location 186 is set to whatever that device number was, 8 or 9 or whatever. But the problem is that if that parameter right here is peak 186, well, it's going to return a 1 at this moment in time. This is kind of like an atomic command. It's a single thing. It's from the perspective of BASIC. It's all executed together before BASIC returns. So essentially, location 186 is set to 1. Then peak 186, if it was this parameter, would return 1, and then it would store 1 back in. But if you have a variable here, like D, set to 8 or 9, then this will return 8 or 9, and it will set the device number to 8 or 9. So I hope that's clear. That's kind of hard to explain, but basically this is like the load command here. This is the file name here, or actually right here. And then this is the parameter. So if you have an 8 or a 9, then location 186 is going to be equal to 8 here. Or if you have the variable D, which is 8 or 9, then this is going to just be equal to whatever D is, 8 or 9. But if you put a peak 186 here, then at this moment, that's going to be equal to 1. And therefore, 186 is going to be, once again, a 1 is going to be put back into it. And that's why you get that press play on tape. There we go. Okay, so I hope that explains this. Whether you think of that as a bug or not, I don't know. Sort of seems like a bug to me. But we're not done yet. One other thing I learned during all this, so I'm going to plug in my Easy Flash 3 cartridge. And I have JiffyDOS in this cartridge. That's the only reason I'm plugging in, number 3 here. Okay, I still have Movie Monster game in there. Just loading it with JiffyDOS. Here's the same program, but instead with the regular kernel or with Super Snapshot, 186 is equal to 9, and we've modified the program again to use peak 186 as the parameter. Let's run it. And we're not getting press play on tape as an error. You see, Movie Monster's loading up just fine with JiffyDOS. So what's the deal now? Okay, now because I can't run my Super Snapshot, by the way, with JiffyDOS active, you can press Control-D to swap to whatever active drive you want. Control-D, so now it says 9 on the screen, and we can do a disk directory. And because I'm using the Easy Flash to put the JiffyDOS ROM replacement, that's a feature only the Easy Flash 3 has, I can't simultaneously run my Super Snapshot cartridge. So instead, I'm going to load up Jim Butterfield's SuperMON program and use that as a monitor instead of the one built in the Super Snapshot. And we'll run that. Why does peak 186 work in line as a parameter with JiffyDOS? Okay, so we're going to look at that same area of memory, E1, D4. And everything's the same here, or 1 is loaded into the X register, but instead of calling FFBA to set the default, a different routine is called. This is one of the many changes that JiffyDOS actually makes to the C64 kernel. F73A. So let's disassemble F73A. Well, it does call FFBA, which sets location 186. And just to make sure, FFBA, okay, so that's the same as before. It is still calling FE100. And sure enough, X is being stored in location 186. So F73A. So it still is staying location 186 to 1, like normal. But then this extra code is executing here in F73A, kind of like one level in, but then it loads the X register with BE. Now, normally in the C64 kernel, BE is a variable used by the tape loader. I think it's like the block counter. But in JiffyDOS, all the tape support is pulled out, and that 0-page address is free. This is kind of like a secondary device number that JiffyDOS uses for its own purposes. This is just like BA or 186, but it's kind of its own JiffyDOS backup version of it. So it checks that, and it checks, is it between value 8 and 1F hex? So it's anywhere from device 8 all the way up to 31. And if it's outside of that range, then 8 is loaded. So for example, the last access was 1, but actually JiffyDOS is keeping a copy of this, so I think it would always be like 8 or 9 anyway. And then it's storing that. It's making sure that it's 8 is the default, but if it was between 8 and 31, it keeps that number. So for, in our case, 9. Stores it in BE, but no matter what, ever since this point here, X is a valid device number between 8 and 31. That's the important thing here. Then it calls this F2D9. And that stores X in BA, which is that location 186. So even though the value 1 is very briefly stored in location 186, JiffyDOS almost immediately corrects that right here. So back to the main load routine. So yes, it does set the device to 1 cassette briefly, but then almost immediately, within this routine, before it even exits, it's set back to the last device used by JiffyDOS, which in our case would be 9. And then when this line happens, this is where our peak 186 might be, or variable D, or a hard-coded 8 or 9. If we use that peak 186 here, then it will return the 9 or whatever it is that we were hoping for. And then it's reinforced here. It's stored back in FFBA and we're set. So really the reason that this bug doesn't happen in JiffyDOS is just because this one change here, another routine. In fact, I have seen this bug in the wild in some programs that use peak 186 as the actual load parameter instead of getting it from a variable first. And probably those were all developed on machines with JiffyDOS, where the programmer thought, why not just do this? And it worked for them because they had JiffyDOS, but then once they released it to the wild, some users without JiffyDOS would report these errors. Okay, so I hope that was informative. It was kind of fun for me anyway. Thanks, David, for bringing that up. Thanks to my patrons for their support. Thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.
It's Saturday, it's time for fun. Load quote, start quote, comma 8, comma 1. Wait just a few seconds, and then the familiar music starts again. Playing Epic's Winter Games with my family and friends. Playing Epic's Winter Games, the excitement never ends. First thing to do is to pick a team, a name to go by, fulfill the dream. Gonna go for Brazil this time, so my success won't have reason or rhyme. Playing Epic's Winter Games with my family and friends. Playing Epic's Winter Games, the excitement never ends. Now is the time to play some events and get to beat up on the parents. I always win in the bobsled race. My dad winds up always in last place. Playing Epic's Winter Games with my family and friends. Playing Epic's Winter Games, the excitement never ends. my fence.